It's so random, but you know in Kung Fu Panda, Master Ube.
I know exactly what you're talking about,
I can't lie. That's one of my favorite quotes, and because I re-listened to it the other day. And what does he say? He's like, yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about spirituality. I've found I've always found that something hard to define. How would you want to eat your food?
I'll answer the question.
Answer the question first.
Answer the question. What is spirituality? So, I think there's a lot of things that you can talk about when it comes to spirituality.
No, but as a not the talking points around it, but the definition of it.
Definition.
Like someone just comes to you, what is spirituality? How are you
being in tune with yourself? Being in tune with yourself. I think it's all about being in tune with yourself, and also, you know, staying present, staying grounded, all these sorts of things, you know.
Yeah, I think there's loads of different aspects, but I've always found it difficult to define. But the one thing that I always find myself coming back to is the energy is something that's always involved. I feel like that's what I keep coming back to. So I would define it as understanding that we ourselves are energy and the world around us is energy as well. So I just think it's navigating life with that understanding.
Okay, yeah, I think so.
And then obviously you can influence your life through certain things, certain practices that we'll go into.
So that's a pretty nice definition of spirituality there.
So you were saying being in tune.
I think being in tune with yourself is like a very, very sort of big important aspect of spirituality, isn't it? It's not really actually like defining spirituality. Spirituality is actually more of a practice rather than anything. It doesn't just come overnight either.
Yeah. So I mean, say I'm someone that has no idea about spirituality. I've asked you what spirituality is. You said it's being in tune with yourself.
Yeah.
Then my next question would probably be, okay, what does it mean to be in tune with yourself?
Staying present, staying grounded, you know, accepting certain situations for what they are, whilst also striving for better, I guess.
Yeah.
In a sense.
So being like self-aware.
Yeah, being self-aware, being like sort of mindful of your actions and mindful of other people's actions in your own surrounding, your own life. Also, I think it's a lot to do with, like, you know, divinity and purpose, but we'll get onto that later on.
Yeah. So what would you say is the goal of spirituality?
Eudaimonia.
Sorry?
Eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia?
Yeah.
What the hell is eudaimonia?
Supreme happiness.
Sounds like a disease.
I think it's like supreme happiness. I need to double check the definition, but it's like a flipping Greek term from Aristotle. Okay. One of those thinkers. And
would you say divine happiness or supreme?
I think it's supreme goodness happiness. Or supreme happiness.
Okay.
Shall I double check the definition?
Yeah.
Check on my phone. Chat to the people whilst I check.
Eudaimonia, I've never heard of that before. But yeah, I feel like in terms of the goal of spirituality, I think one of the big goals is peace of mind. Like how you said about being mindful is like part of being in tune and being present. I feel like a lot of that contributes to peace of mind. Like obviously you don't have to go to the extreme, like be a monk. Like you can look at them and say, you know, they've got peace of mind, they're kind of enlightened is the word.
So I've got so it's basically the Greek term eudaimonia has no one word translation in English. There's a thinker called Hursthouse, and he sort of describes it as a combination of well-being, happiness and flourishing. So I think when you're in a sort of, I don't think anybody can actually reach a point of like full, I don't know how you would coin.
What, enlightenment?
Enlightenment, yeah. I don't think anybody can actually reach a point of enlightenment unless you're like so at peace and like it's your daily practice, like it's your occupation.
Unless if you made it your mission to focus on being a spiritual person.
Yeah.
Then yeah.
But it's essentially like it's an Aristotelian / Greek term, and it's the ultimate goal of a human being is to sort of have a combination of being well, being happy and flourishing with your life.
Yeah. So would you accept that as a goal of
being happy, or just all of those things?
just all of things. So overall well-being, would you be happy with that as a goal of a journey of spirituality?
I think so, I think so. I think there's a lot more that ties into it, like we'll get onto later on. Like we said, like there's a lot of spiritual practices that tie into it, but I think as a goal, I think that is the sort of I genuinely think the whole end goal for a human being is to live a flourishing life in terms of spirituality levels and if we're talking spirituality, I think there's many different ways that you can get there, but we'll talk about that later on, like I've mentioned like 5 times already.
So what would you say is the importance of spirituality, especially in modern times?
In modern times, I think going by what I said earlier in terms of like staying grounded and staying true to yourself, and also being mindful of your actions, the things that you say, etc. I think it's very, very important in that aspect, simply because of the fact that you essentially, if you're mindful of yourself and if you're mindful of your actions, you're essentially like more in tune. And if you're more in tune with yourself, I think it's a causation for saying that you're more grounded than others. But at the same time, like, I've not really described the importance of spirituality there, have I? But like, it's good for the peace of mind. It's good for peace of mind, and it's a good practice to instill in your daily life.
So I want to stick with the whole throughout this whole conversation. I want to stick with the word mindful. So have you seen the movie Fight Club? You haven't seen it?
No.
So it's a favorite amongst.
It's a big movie, don't know.
Yeah, it's a favorite amongst men. It's not necessarily a coming of. I'm not going to spoil it or anything. Not necessarily a coming of age story or anything, but it's just about. Like in the movie, they go into like spiritual warfare. So, is Brad Pitt is one of the main characters in the movie, and he's kind of talking to his cult, if you will, and he's saying that previous generations, they've had their own wars, they've had their own struggles, and then in modern times our war is a spiritual one. So, and I think that is very true. Like the whole message behind the movie is just about like not becoming a slave in society, basically. And not, he uses the term space monkey, which I really like just kind of brain dead, kind of just going, just strolling through life, like not really living, you can say. So with the whole aspect of being mindful, I think the reason I went into that is because it talks about spiritual warfare, and I think the way I would argue that society, or I don't know if you can call it society, or higher powers in society obviously try to manipulate and control general society through different means like social media, and essentially doing things in a mindless way. So I think it's important to focus on spirituality, so you don't become mindless.
You don't become a slave to them, man.
Exactly. I think like that's where a lot of mental health issues come in. And the what's the word, lack of peace, like you're not having a peace of mind, not being self-aware. I think it's important to engage in certain practices which will bring you that peace of mind and be more present.
Sorry, I'm eating.
No, enjoy the food. It's good food.
It is good food, man. It is good food. I think for me there, you haven't really defined the importance of spirituality, other than the fact that you said it's more about sort of conservation of your mind, so peace of mind, and also like not sort of being a slave to the man.
No, I'm saying its importance is from not being a space monkey.
Okay, yeah. No.
Or do you disagree?
I don't disagree.
Or would you say it has?
I don't think spirituality and the importance of it is something that you can disagree on. I think it's something that's so subjective. That you're just gonna have your essential own opinion on it, because at the end of the day, everyone's like sort of spiritual practices are different. Like you've got the whole like astrology side to things. You've got the Hindus' belief on spirituality.
But I would argue that everyone's overarching goal should be peace.
Yeah, no. That's where I
Like
agree with you.
when you ask someone, oh, if there was a genie and you had 3 wishes, people are gonna like wish for world peace. And
Yeah.
I think that's always been like a common value amongst humans. Like peace is a good thing.
Peace is a good thing, yeah.
Or what would you say is its importance?
I mean, I'm pretty much in agreement with you when you say that like peace is the most important part of spirituality, or the importance of spirituality, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, living in peace and having your mind at peace is something that's, you know, a lot of people envy to be in that position, or a lot of people aspire to be in that position, I should say. They just don't know how to get there. I think it's very, like I've mentioned, I think this is something that we're probably going to go in circles about in terms of the importance, but it's really, really important to actually like the importance of spirituality is to essentially, it helps you stay grounded, it helps you to sort of become mindfully aware of actions, and also in a sense that, like, I don't really know how to describe it, I'm trying to like coin the term in my head, but it's just an important practice.
Yeah.
It can come in many different ways, shapes or forms, and the more you instill it into your life, the more disciplined you become, and the more sort of at peace you are with yourself. And it kind of intertwines with stoicism a little bit as well, but like I think stoicism and spirituality are like 2 completely different concepts, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, spirituality is definitely important, man. It's definitely important for the peace of mind.
Okay, so
Don't want to be a space monkey, like you said.
Yeah, so you established its importance.
Yeah.
The goal of spirituality. So, yeah, going back to I'm just a random stranger. I've come to you, like you've explained those things. My next question is going to be, okay, so how do I start my spiritual journey, or how do I become more spiritual?
It's a good question.
Or what are things I can do?
So practices, basically, essentially.
Yeah.
I think it's more of like a sort of not humbling situation, but like it's always through sort of humble beginnings, I guess. Like you like if you, for example, like one of the most like important spiritual practices you have is meditation, right? Meditation is a practice. Now the word practice is essentially doing something over and over again until you're able to perfect it. And like the first time that you do certain things, it's never going to be perfect. You know, like the people would argue that the whole sort of concept of meditation is to have like a peaceful, quiet mind, but what you kind of have to accept there is that you're human, so you're always essentially going to have intrusive thoughts, or like any sort of negative thoughts enter your mind. And sometimes some people are wired that way, sometimes some people aren't. It really depends on like what your situation in life is like at the moment. But in terms of how to sort of encourage someone to start their spirituality journey, I think it's by taking small steps, because a lot of people would like consider like cold showers to be a spiritual thing, man.
So the spiritual practices I do, I would say the purpose of them is to bring me back to being a natural human being. What I mean by that is, before we had all these modern things like TV, social media, phones, and in modern times we're consuming them all the time. But a natural human, they wouldn't have had those things to fulfill their cravings and desires.
Stimulate their mind.
Exactly.
Where you are.
So a lot of the practices that you do, they're just going back to being a natural human. What we were when we were like cavemen and women, to be honest.
No, you speaking facts. I love that you're speaking facts.
Our brains haven't evolved that much, in the sense that certain circuitry still works the same way. Things like the reward system, they still work the same way. That's why things like phones and junk food build cravings so well. No, I'm fine.
No, I'm not offering it to you. I'm saying you said junk food, and I was like, junk food.
Yeah.
Pizza counts as junk food.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, not good for spirituality, but I'm hungry and it's fast food.
But a lot of these things, a lot of the practices that you should do to become more spiritual, they bring you back to being a more natural human being. So in terms of someone starting to become more spiritual, I don't know. I would say the place to start is gaining more knowledge.
I think
I wouldn't say just start by doing
daily practices.
any random practice. I'd say firstly gain knowledge. So, but I would say even reading books in itself, you can argue
It's a spiritual
that's
practice.
spiritual because
I'm reading go on.
if you really get into a book, you can, like you talk about quite a lot, you can get into a flow state and you're just enjoying something that's, you know, relatively natural.
Yeah, I think
You're not just like scrolling through your phone or scrolling on social media.
knowledge is power, man. Knowledge is power.
You said you were reading a book. You said you were reading a book.
Am I reading a book?
I thought you were going to say that you were reading.
No. I was gonna say that I agree with you in terms of the fact that you can't just jump straight into a spiritual practice, but I feel like you can definitely encourage people to actually try certain practices.
Yeah.
But the thing that you mentioned now about gaining knowledge is something that I didn't really think about. I think for me personally, I think it's something that I kind of just jumped straight into, just because it's like a kind of a big part of my faith and etc. But we'll get into that later a little bit. It's very, very sort of important to encourage someone to take the small steps, encourage them to sort of find the knowledge, find what works for them. It could be like through research, through the internet, or reading books, whatever it is. There's a lot of like spiritual practice books out there. And like knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
So would you say, like you mentioned faith, would you say there's an alignment between spirituality and religion?
Faith, yeah, definitely. There's lots and lots of religions out there that sort of instill spirituality into their religion. Myself, obviously coming from like a Hindu faith, like meditation is a massive thing in terms of like peace of mind and essentially not remaining stoic, but you know, being mindful of our actions, etc. It all sort of ties into everything. So in terms of faith and spirituality, they definitely do intertwine. I'm not too educated on like other religions to comment on those, but I do think 100% they are intertwined for sure. What do you think?
I feel like I would say the same. They are intertwined. I feel like religion is I'd say a lot less people would describe themselves as religious nowadays. They would describe themselves more as spiritual. I think people are maybe it's extreme to say religion is dying, but
it is though. It is. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
Sorry. I think it is like it's like we live in
I think in the Western world for sure.
Exactly what I was about to say. We live in a Western society, and is there secularism is on the increase or the decrease? Increase.
Secular would be increasing.
Yeah, secularism is an increasing. So, you know, a lot of people are doing the whole like YOLO thing and YOLO. I haven't heard that term. You only live once.
Yeah.
And sort of like.
I feel like that's why people are gravitating towards other belief systems.
Materialism.
That as well.
Materialism.
I feel like so there's the aspect of believing in nothing, and I'd say that would be materialism, just following money and things and stuff. And then there's other aspects of finding other things to believe in. So I'd say spirituality is part of that. So at the same time as part of religion, it's also another direction.
You say
that makes sense?
Spiritual? Nah, it doesn't. What do you mean by direction?
As in terms of the practices.
Yeah. Okay.
But then again, you could argue that these practices are part of the religion, part of religions.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like you said, in Hinduism, meditation
is a big practice. It is even like culturally speaking, right? Like a lot of people do believe. I don't know what like Indians or Hindus believe in cold showers in particular, because I remember reading like the facts about it ages ago. But it's a big part of the culture to take a cold shower as well, just because of the health benefits that come with it.
But I'm kind of deep in it now. Sorry to cut you off. I'm kind of deep in it now. A lot of these practices are part of religion. Things like fasting.
Yeah.
Things like
Ramadan,
celibacy,
Islam, celibacy. Yeah.
All of that.
They're all seen as like spiritual practices as well.
But I would also say Western society and people going to other things to believe in. Things like. I'm thinking about things like astrology. Obviously, I mean, me personally, I think is a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, no.
But people are like how you were saying, religion is dying. I can see that in terms of people are looking at other belief systems, and obviously, I mean, regardless of what I say, people are going to believe in astrology or not. But I think people believe in astrology because it allows them to feel like they know what other people are going to do.
It's
so
like
there's some.
It's kind of a thing.
There's some prick out there that's just like, yeah, he's an Aquarius, he's X, Y, Z. he has these characteristics.
It's kind of
on Sunday he does this. I was
gonna say it's kind of one of those things where like I feel like people use astrology to sort of like forecast somebody's actions or how somebody's gonna be, just to sort of, and if they're in like a particular state of mind, it's just to sort of kind of put their mind at ease or to prepare themselves for what's to come. But I was gonna say, don't get me wrong, right? Like astrology is like it's a fucking massive part of Hinduism as well.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Obviously, like I'm not very educated on astrology in terms of the whole religion aspect.
Yeah.
But for some reason it's a big part. But me personally, I'm not too strong in a belief that the positions of stars, the positions of stars and planets is not going to tell me what to do on a Tuesday.
The moon being in retrograde and
Mercury, bro.
I don't understand that.
Right now it's Mercury.
What are you talking about, man?
Right now Mercury's in retrograde.
Bro. Yeah, that's a whole bunch of gibberish to me. But yeah, I think it's just a way. Yeah. Exactly what you said, a way for people to think what other people are doing.
I do think though, like if it's somebody's belief system, you can't really fault it. Do you get what I mean?
I feel like it's better to believe in something than nothing.
Exactly.
That's for sure.
Exactly. I think if it's your belief system,
but you shouldn't do it in a way where it hinders you. Like if you're saying, "Oh, I'm not going to date this person because they're born in March."
Yeah, that's where it gets
between the middle of March to the end of March. It's just like, why?
You're a Capricorn. You're weird. You're a fucking
like you shouldn't base. If you want to base decisions from it on yourself, then that's fine. But don't make decisions on other people based on it.
Yeah,
that doesn't make sense.
You shouldn't judge. Well, it's essentially kind of like saying you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, innit? But it's not really judging a book by its cover. It's judging.
But let's leave that astrology bullshit to the side. Let's talk about actual spiritual practices. So, rewinding a bit, we were talking about how a lot of these spiritual practices are actually in religion anyway.
Yeah.
But I think people would rather focus on the spiritual practices more so than the religion. When it comes to the whole religion's dying out aspect, they'd rather focus on the spiritual practices more so. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Because like I said, for me, it's about getting back to being a natural human, not being consumed by all the bullshit of the modern day.
But being a natural human doesn't being a natural human to you sort of consist of you being in like a sort of flourishing state? Because I feel like a lot of the things that we face nowadays in terms of like not mental health crisis, but like having an intrusive thought or negative thoughts was never a thing like maybe like 100 or 200. Maybe it was a thing.
Of course. What do you mean?
Like what I mean is like nobody's out there like 200 years ago thinking that they're fat or thinking that they're too skinny.
200 years ago?
300. What do you bro? I'm trying to articulate myself in such a better way, but what I mean
I would go back further than that, than being a natural. I wouldn't say 200 years ago is
1,000 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
Something like 1,000 years ago, it's never a problem to think you're too fat or too skinny. If anything,
I think so there's with time periods there's different cultural norms. So I don't know if it's exactly 1,000 years ago, but obviously olden times, if you were fat, that's a sign that you're wealthy because you can afford a lot of food.
I mean, look at Henry VIII, bro. I'm not even trying to be funny or anything. He ate a lot. He was a wealthy guy. He was the king of England for a bit.
Yeah. And
like back then in the Tudor era, if you were like kind of
I wouldn't call that a natural human though.
No.
In the sense
of
that,
course not.
In a spiritual, because you would argue that they're consumed with materialism.
Yeah, that's true as well.
So
yeah.
Even further back than that, I'm thinking cavemen, cavewomen, just like when nothing's really around, none of this bullshit is around, you're just focusing on surviving and procreating.
Procreate, exactly, bro. Because like, what we kind of strayed off topic a little bit, but what was the whole purpose of that? It was to, like, the natural state of a human being, that's it. And then I can't remember why I started talking about, like, having intrusive thoughts. But like but basically what I was trying to say is that whatever time period it was before our century right now, these things were never a thing. And I feel like back then people were a lot more in tune with themselves because they're just focusing on like surviving and procreating
because they're less stimulated. Less overstimulated, should I say.
So would you say it's become a lot harder to be spiritual because of the change of or
100%.
because of modern times? Yeah, no.
100%.
It's true. I think so as well.
It's harder to be a lot of the practices. Discipline is necessary, and I think that's the one thing that is more difficult today.
But the thing, one thing I want to say about discipline, right, before we even say anything, like there's a very, very important topic when it comes to discipline, which is the differentiation between discipline and motivation. I think motivation is more something that comes in waves, and then discipline is something that's more like this.
Discipline is doing something when you don't even if you don't want to.
Exactly.
Motivation is like I'm hyped up, like I want to do this.
Yeah, but
discipline is just like you're doing it regardless.
But what I'm trying to say is like motivation is like one massive wave and then it's gone. Whereas discipline is taking small steps every day to sort of better your life, even if you don't want to do it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The spiritual practices require discipline.
They do.
So let's go into the actual spiritual practices. We've spoken about meditation, and I know for me the goal of that is to be more present and slow my mind down. Like a lot of it, like looking at our phones, watching TV, we're always stimulated, and I feel like it gives me that time to, I don't know, just for my mind to be calm, and just to like I feel more aware of what's around me and more present once I finish my meditation. So I think that's definitely an important aspect. I think if that's something you want to start, obviously you can go online and look at different tutorials and all that stuff. But I would just say start small.
Yeah.
Like, because it is very difficult to just, especially nowadays, very difficult to just focus on one thing for even a short period of time. Because I look at TikTok videos, they're like 30 seconds and people can't even get through that.
Yeah.
So I think
short attention span.
Close your eyes and just focus on your breathing for 30 seconds. For a lot of people, that would be a challenge.
Yeah.
I don't think most people could do that without like their thoughts straying.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because there's a lot of people that there's a lot of people that try and meditate and then they say it's not really for them or like whatever it might be. But then for me,
I don't buy that though. That is not for them. What does that mean? That just means you can't
quiet mind. You can't sit still for 30 seconds or 1 minute or however long.
You can't say something good for you isn't for you. That doesn't make any sense.
That's true. You can't say that something's good for you is not for you.
I think
it's because people just don't want to do it.
Yeah, I think it's natural as a human. We gravitate towards the things that we're good at, and then we start to like them more because we're good at them. But if we realise we're bad at it, it's like I don't like this.
I think we've kind of not revolutionised ourselves, but like we've become such a materialistic society that like a lot of spiritual practices like over the last 1,500, 2,000 years have kind of been lost. Like I feel like back in the days, but like before modern times, like these things like meditation and cold showers and maybe even reading books, they were a part of like people's everyday lives. And whereas now, like because we live in a society where like especially in the location that we're in, like living paycheck to paycheck, don't have time, stressing over this, stressing over that.
Yeah.
So I think it's just come to a point.
But that's why it's important. You got to get rid of the stress. You got to learn how to manage stress, and I think that's a big reason to be a more spiritual person. You learn
managing stress better.
Manage stress. But sticking with meditation, would you say there are any other ways besides like the conventional sitting down or lying down, closing your eyes and breathing? There's other ways.
There's lots, bro. There's lots. I think for me personally, I think I spoke about this in the first podcast. I spoke about like the Wim Hof breathing. The Wim Hof breathing is a rapid breathing and like always hold your breath and then release the breath. Yeah. It's to the point where like you feel, I think there's a lack of oxygen in your brain or something like that.
Yeah.
I think there's lots of different ways.
I wasn't even thinking about it in terms of still being a breathing practice, but even something as simple as like going on a walk, not listening to music, like just being outside in nature,
being present,
that can be meditative as well. Because you're not really stimulated by anything.
You're stimulated by the environment around you, though, isn't it? But you're more so consuming it in a healthy way, because
in more not like just going for a walk like down the fucking high street.
No,
but I mean like actually being in nature, finding like a forest or some nature reserve that you can go to.
No, because as human beings, we're animals, so it's normal for us to be like sort of connected with nature as well.
Even from a scientific point of view, so there was, I don't know if there's been multiple studies, but I know one study, they looked at like different colors and how they affect our heart rate and like our nervous system. And the color green actually calms us down. It activates something called our parasympathetic nervous system.
Ooh.
So obviously things like trees.
Blessing me with that knowledge.
Go
on.
Obviously things like trees, grass, being out in nature, that is going to have a calming effect on your body. So I would say that it's something where you're just reducing the stimulation. That's going to be
What do you think of
meditative.
Grounding.
Or just like being connected to that.
Being connected to the earth.
I think it can be. If
if
it helps you, then it's good. And I feel like it is nice to do like every once in a while. Obviously, it's difficult to do in a place like England, like it's cold as fuck. But
it's cold as fuck. It's always raining. Like you don't want your feet to get muddy. Yeah. But it's important. It's important to stay connected with Earth, man. It is.
So what other spiritual practices besides meditation?
Meditation.
Do you think people should
talk more about grounding, man? But obviously, it's hard to do here. Like grounding. Yeah. Grounding is meant to keep you rooted in the earth. Like I mean, I'm not too educated on grounding myself, you know. But I know it's something that a lot of people do, especially in the Eastern societies.
Okay.
You know, like Thailand and not Singapore, but where it was Thailand and where are the monks from?
Monks.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, I don't know.
Indonesia. Nah, not Indonesia. Somewhere in that part of the world.
Yeah.
You know, it's like grounding is a big fucking concept that they do to keep themselves like sort of like rooted and connected. We've obviously mentioned meditation as like a huge practice, but I think you know what I would argue that's like a little bit more advanced. You know, not advanced in the sense that you know, not
difficult to do.
Yeah, difficult to do, but I think more advanced in the sense that like once you've garnered your knowledge and gained it,
kind of understanding it.
Yeah, it's just about like understanding why you're doing it. It's like the more sort of like
that's true.
It's like more of like a 3-dimensional thought rather than a 2D thought, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I made sense there when I said that. But to me, it made sense.
I get you.
Yeah. So, like, in terms of other spiritual practices, what can we say?
I think engaging, just to finish off there, I think engaging with nature in any capacity, is gonna be good. Like, even on more scientific podcasts, they'll tell you like in the morning you should get direct sunlight, and I think something as
boost serotonin, something
as simple as that. That's an important part of, you know, connecting with nature. And
is it serotonin or dopamine? Dopamine.
I think it might be both.
Yeah, it could be both. Yeah.
But yeah, so okay, grounding, being in nature, meditation. Well,
reading a book, like we mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
reading a book is something that's important.
Absorbing knowledge. When I said reading a book, my mind immediately went to The Power of Now.
Yeah. Good book.
Now that's. So for the people that haven't read it, it's basically talking about the importance of being present and the drawbacks of thinking about too much about the future and thinking too much about the past.
Yeah. So they're basically saying that the past and the future are non-existent concepts, and they're just figments of your thoughts, basically, because they've happened and they're not there anymore.
They either bring if you think about the past, then that's going to bring pain. If you think about the future, then that's going to bring anxiety. So it's always. So do you know what? It's so random, but you know in Kung Fu Panda, Master Uwe. I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't lie. That's one of my favorite quotes, and because I re-listened to it the other day, and what does he say? He's like, yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery.
But the present, something about gift.
Oh fuck! What is it? Actually, like that's my like.
It's a top 3 quote. It's a good quote, man.
Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery.
But right now is the present.
The present, no. But all we have something like it will be something like, I'm trying to use common sense. It will be something like all we have is the present.
And that's why we call it a gift. That's why it's a gift, man, mate, bro. Yeah. I love that quote, man. I love it.
I'm gonna write that down, put it on my wall. That's actually such a good quote.
Little vision board, vision board. Like,
bro, that's so good. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow, even just thinking about those two, like we actually know those for sure. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. That's why you don't really need to think about those.
But yeah,
the history is just gonna bring pain, and if you don't know what tomorrow brings, then there's not much point thinking about it.
Exactly. I agree with you, man. I agree with you. Top tier quote, Kung Fu Panda. But going back to what we were talking about. Going back to what we were talking about, Power Now, good book, read it.
Yeah, but there's also other books you can gain knowledge from, and they themselves, they'll talk about
Think and Grow Rich.
other
Books.
They'll talk about other spiritual practices, like in Think and Grow Rich. I know they talk about sexual transmutation.
Yeah.
So, which is another spiritual practice within itself.
Retention.
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of gaining knowledge, there's loads of places you can look to gain knowledge from. It doesn't even have to be necessarily related to spirituality. I think gaining knowledge in any capacity is going to make you more. It's going to make you more aware in life. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to have a better idea of how to navigate life. So yeah, find any area of life that you're interested in, or even if I don't know about reading fiction books. Obviously, actually, reading fiction books is good in terms of
entertainment.
In terms of not being overstimulated and not just going on social media, but non-fiction books where you're actually gaining knowledge.
I think fiction books are a waste of time, man.
I'm not a fan of.
I'm not a fan of like any like graphic
unless they
novels.
have like unless there's like a hidden meaning or something.
Not Kung Fu Panda. It's not really a fiction novel, but
yeah.
No.
But so gaining knowledge, that's really important. I think, like we just touched on, another big spiritual practice is sexual transmutation.
Yeah. Huge.
So like even in,
I'll let you take the lead on that.
Even in, I could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
We'll have to do another whole podcast on this because I can literally talk about this for hours. This is something I'm really. Is it weird to say you're passionate about it? I don't know. I just know it to be.
It's kind of sus, but it's calm.
I just know it to be the truth. For me, at least. I think
like being somebody that has actually tried to practice before, you definitely do notice an increase in like a lot of your energy levels when you start doing.
So,
go on. No, go.
I was just going to explain. So, for the people that don't know what sexual transmutation is, it's basically harnessing your sexual energy and transmuting it or putting it into another area of your life, obviously in a positive way.
If you're a man, don't bash off.
Yeah, I mean that's way of putting it. But I mean, you could even like I said, how these practices align with religion.
Yeah.
In religion, a lot of the time they talk about
abstaining from sexual practices.
Yeah, like celibacy in general, being abstinent. So I think it's definitely something that's important. But so for me, the way I've come to understand it, and I don't know, I almost feel lucky about how I stumbled upon it, and I wasn't just watching some guy saying, oh yeah, don't bust a nut and girls will be attracted to you. I'm glad I didn't learn about it like that. Mm-hmm. They talked about it in the sense of transmutation and actually putting your energy into something different, and
other areas of your life.
Exactly, like the guy I watched, he was talking about other examples of people in history that have used the same practice and used it to do great things. And the way I understood it is, or the way I made sense of it, is that energy, like that is even a scientific principle. Energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. Mm-hmm. So we have this energy within us. We can either waste it, or we can harness it and put it into something else. And that's so I'd say since like 2018 maybe 2017, 18, it's something I've been. It just becomes a lifestyle. Not to say that it's obviously it's difficult for a reason. Like you're not always going to be perfect, mm-hmm. but it is definitely something that you always need to be conscious of.
Yeah,
and I think it very much ties into becoming more disciplined. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would definitely encourage people to engage in that practice.
Yeah, because like aside from all like the sort of transmutation of energy, there's also a lot of sort of health benefits that come with it as a man. Like isn't it along that the 7th or 8th day is meant to increase your T levels by like a certain percentage?
But I mean, okay, so
but I know you're talking about the spiritual practices, but I think this is also important.
No, in terms of science, so there have been studies that show it does increase testosterone after a certain period. Mm-hmm. It does dip down again to normal levels, so I think after like the 8th day or something. Yeah. But there haven't been any long-term studies on the effects. But I think what people need to read between the lines more. So the way I looked at it is, obviously it has positive effects on your dopamine levels, or what I call dopamine sensitivity, like how much stimulation you need to want to do something, or to have motivation. And then I looked at the correlation between dopamine and testosterone. Like when you've kind of completely depleted your dopamine and you don't really have much motivation to do anything, your testosterone is also going to go down. So long-term effects, there's not been any actual studies, but there is evidence that wasting your sexual energy too much can blunt testosterone production. And then obviously it's going to affect your dopamine as well. So common sense tells me also that also affects your testosterone production in the long term.
I think my from my experiences on like retention, right, I definitely noticed there was an increase in energy. I was doing things more. I had more motivation to do things as well. I was lifting a lot heavier, not a lot heavier, but I was lifting a substantial amount, and I was like transmuting the energy, like putting in a work at work, like working on my craft. Obviously back in the day I used to have my own podcast as well, but went to shit because other priorities. But at the same time, like you really do notice that you will. It's so hard to describe. It's so hard to describe.
What's hard to describe?
Like you notice it. You notice
the benefits from it.
You notice the benefits from it, because like
100%.
once you get to like day 15, day 20, you're like, I've got all this energy. I've got everything. I've got everything I need in front of me. Your life just. It's like when you have discipline in one area of your life, it will start instilling into other areas of your life.
100%.
So that's why I think it's like an important practice as well. It's important in the sense that as being a male, you need to have your priorities set out straight, be more organized, this and that, have more energy, whatever.
Lack of sexual discipline can be a man's downfall. 100%.
100%, man. 100%.
A lot of men die for
Nyash. They die for Nyash, man.
Exactly.
Die for Nyash.
They die for, and they don't use proper thinking. So in talking about books, in the book Outwitting the Devil, is basically a conversation between a man and the devil, and he's asking him various questions. So I think he asks him something to do with sexual energy and transmutation. And I remember one of the statements was, sex emotion is the same energy with which one thinks. Does that make sense?
Say that again.
Sex emotion is the same energy with which one thinks.
Kind of, yeah. It's basically from what I've gathered, it's basically saying, sex emotion.
It's the same
energy which one thinks. It's basically saying don't be a slave to your sexual desires. Yeah. That's what.
And not only that, but properly controlled sex emotion can be applied to other areas. That is transmutation
of your energy. They talk about it a lot in Think and Grow Rich as well. So the book by Napoleon Hill.
Both books are by Napoleon Hill.
Is it?
Outwitting the Devil is by Napoleon Hill as well.
Oh shit, okay. So Think and Grow Rich is more to do with like finances though, isn't it? So Think and Grow Rich is more to do with finances, but it talks a lot about sexual transmutation and how you can direct your energy towards certain things.
I could talk about like
you bro, you're the pro on that, man.
I would call myself a pro. It's just something that I've committed myself to. Because I don't know, I'm lucky enough to have found it something that's really important, and I know it will help me move forward and grow spiritually. And
if it works, but the thing is, if it works for you, it works for you. Whatever helps you flourish, and that's the word that I love using. And we go back to the word eudaimonia as well. So why are you smiling at me? Like
nothing.
We go back to the word like eudaimonia, which means like being supreme happiness. Like if that's something, if having a lot of energy is something that brings you to a supreme goodness or a supreme happiness, then it's beneficial, and it's a practice that's good for you in your own life.
I would say it's a practice that's worth it. Like all these practices are worth it. Obviously, like you said, they require discipline, but anything that requires discipline is more often than not worth it.
It's true, man. It's true.
So moving on from sexual transmutation, what other practices, spiritual practices?
We've gone
should
over
people
quite a
engage in?
lot of them though.
Yeah, meditation, being grounded, being in nature, retention, cold showers. Did we mention that?
Cold showers. I think cold showers is more of a thing. I think for me anyway, cold showers is something that I still kind of do today as well. Like I don't do it every day like I used to, but it's more like a 2 or 3 times a week sort of thing. It's something. It's just something that sort of forces me to sort of be uncomfortable because life is full of uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, I don't know if I would entirely call it a spiritual practice, but
It's more of a.
because it involves like so much discipline. I would have to say it is.
It is. It's more. It's more.
Practicing self-control.
It's more for like the development of the mind a little bit to force yourself in an uncomfortable situation so you can actually sort of potentially tackle the day because nobody knows what you're going to face during the day because nobody can forecast the future. But like it's something that a lot of athletes do as well because there's a lot, like I said, like there's a lot of health benefits that come with it. Improves blood flow, apparently reduces body fat as well because your heart rate increases. So essentially it's kind of not really seen as a form of cardio, but it is a form of cardio because you know if there's a lack of if you're cold your heart beats quicker. So it's quicker.
But I think in terms of the
whole spiritual side of it, it's something that instills discipline, so it's a spiritual practice.
And I think that's what I'm saying, it's all about getting back to being a natural human. Like it just obviously not saying hot water is like overstimulating your mind, but
it forces you to be comfortable.
Uncomfortable.
No, forced hot water.
No, I'm saying the cold water.
The cold water.
That's what I'm saying about being a natural human. You just learn to just get on with it, basically.
Yeah, you got to learn to get on with a lot of things in this life, man.
Would you say there's any other spiritual practices that we haven't gone over?
I think we've touched over the very, very, very good ones in terms of like if you're just starting out or stepping into sort of your spiritual journey, like meditation, cold showers, retention.
I think maybe the only thing we haven't touched on is fasting.
Yeah, fasting.
I think all of these are versions of fasting. So like retention. Yeah, retention is a sexual
because
fast.
you
could say meditation is just a fast from
disconnecting from reality. A little bit. I think fasting is a very important concept.
Fasting itself, obviously, well known in religions. I think from a spiritual aspect, even if you engage in something like intermittent fasting, again, it's something that's building discipline. Yeah,
because you're not giving into those materialistic needs. Not materialistic
your
needs.
Desires.
Your desires,
No,
eating food. But yeah, man, I think fasting is important, like you mentioned in a lot of religions. But I myself, I don't know a lot about fasting. I know about intermittent fasting because I know the health benefits that come with it. But if it's something that does instill discipline because you're abstaining from it.
Yeah. So having fasted before, it's just like you become a lot more grateful for obvious reasons.
Expression of gratitude.
And then the reason I'm so heavy on this getting back to being a natural human is because like looking at the example of fasting, humans all them years ago they didn't have like these high calorie foods and stuff, and they got joy from eating like fruits and berries from trees and stuff. So I remember the times when I have fasted and it's like if I break my fast, it's like some fruit or something. It's just
appreciate it more.
It's just, it tastes like the most beautiful thing ever. But it's so simple, and it's just like, that's what I'm saying. Like even if you were to abstain from eating loads of junk foods and sugar for 30 days,
that fruit tastes like candy, man.
Bro, that
fruit tastes like candy, man. I've done it before.
It tastes like the greatest thing in the world.
Bro, even like 2 or 3 weeks, man. I didn't completely cut out sugars for my life.
Yeah.
But I sort of stopped myself from having like chocolate croissants and all that stuff.
I think that's what it means.
It's crazy.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what it means to get back to being a natural human, finding pleasure in the small things. Like the wind blowing, the sun being out.
The same wavelength.
The sun being out, being connected to the earth, having fruits and whole natural foods and stuff. Yeah, I think that's all the spiritual practices that I can think of for now. But yeah, no, I think engaging in these practices, whether you want to do it for spiritual reasons or just general self-improvement, I think is definitely important to engage in some of them. But I think spirituality itself is an important part of self-improvement. So I think it's important to do some sort of research on that.
Yeah, I agree. The more research you do on your own, when you find out kind of what works better for you, the better. Like I said, every sort of like human being is an individual in themselves. You know, what works for you might not work for somebody else. Like that's what I was saying about meditation earlier. Maybe like some people find it difficult to close their eyes, but it's something that's good for you, and it's a practice. It's something that takes time to sort of master. You're never going to master it on the first try like that. It's going to be something, you know, that requires a bit of discipline, you know, but discipline builds over time the more you sort of put yourself in that situation where you don't want to be. But yeah, man.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's been, but it feels like time has flown by. Yeah, no, I think we can call it there. It's been a good conversation. I think. I mean, the fact that time has gone so fast, I've obviously enjoyed it. It's a
good conversation.
Yeah, no,
it's a good conversation. I feel like I've learned a lot.
It's not something that's commonly spoken about, but I feel like it's still important for sure. But yeah, no, we'll leave it there. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy it. Till next time. Peace.
Subscribe.
Yeah.